Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club and my first check-in to see how I'm doing on all of the reading challenges that I'm doing this year. I was going to do these quarterly, so the first one was going to be January, February and March, but we're now well into April and I was sick and couldn't film, and so now I'm better and now I'm just gonna do a check-in now. Like if there are books that I read in April, I'm going to include them because I just cannot be bothered to keep this strictly to the first 3 months of the year. I'm not going to go into what the books are about. Maybe I'll include a star rating on the screen somewhere as I mention the books, but mostly I just want to go through the challenges one by one and give you an update on how I'm doing on all of them if you're interested in that. And yeah, let's just get started. And I will of course put all of the information in the description of this video. So there you will find the creators of these challenges and their announcement videos and the challenges on Storygraph and all of that. So starting with the challenge that I haven't read anything for yet this year, and that is the Climathon 2025 by Tasmin at Tasmin 2. This is one of the challenges where I will be doubling up, I think, because a lot of the books that I have picked out to read are books that fulfill several of the prompts for the challenge. But so far I haven't read any of them. The next challenge is the Classic 6 by Suey at Suey's Book Banter, and this challenge is just to read 6 classics throughout the year, and so far I have read 1, and that was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Moving on to the Buzzword Challenges by Kayla at Books and Lala, and starting with the title challenge, I have fulfilled 5 of the prompts so far, so I'm ahead and doing well. The first one is Truth and Lies, and for that I read Count My Lies by Sophie Stava. For the second prompt, to read a book with a water-related word in the title, I read Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. For the prompt, to read a book with an animal in the title, I read Bunny by Mona Awad. For the prompt, to read a book with a memory-related word in the title, I read Forgotten on Sunday by Valerie Perron. And for the prompt, alliteration, I read Ronja Ravadotter by Astrid Lindgren. Moving on to the Buzzword Cover Challenge, also by Kayla at Books and Lala, and for that I have read 4 books so far, so right on schedule. The first prompt I have completed is to read a book with a skyline on the cover, and for that I read Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. For the prompt to read a book with eyes on the cover, I read The 3 Lives of Kate Kay by Kate Fagan. For the prompt to read a book with technology on the cover, I read Cross My Heart by Megan Collins. And for the prompt to read a book with a weapon on the cover, I read My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinkan Braithwaite. So yeah, I'm doing pretty well on those so far, and now let's move on to the Savidge Prompts Reading Challenge by Simon at Savidge Reads and Louise at Louise Savidge Muses. So for this challenge I've read 3 books so far. One of the prompts is to read a book with a body of water in the title, and so I'm counting Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield for this one as well. Another prompt is to read a book with a fictionalized story of a true person, and for that I read Isola by Allegra Goodman. And for the prompt to read a book with a light source on the cover, I'm counting Cross My Heart by Megan Collins, as you can see the light coming from the laptop screen on there. Next up I have the Read Good Challenge by Ben at Ben Reads Good, and for this I have read 5 books so far. The prompt for January is Annuary, so that is to read a book written by someone called Anne or Annie or something along those lines, or a book with Anne or Annie in the title. And so for this I read Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. The prompt for April is to read a book that's been nominated for the Women's Prize, and for this I have read 2 books. I read Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell, and also My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinkan Braithwaite could also count for that. Another prompt is to read a book in translation, and for that I'm counting Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. And for Sapphire September, the prompt is to read a book with a blue cover, and for that I read Forgotten on Sunday by Valerie Perron. And for No Comfort November, the prompt is to read a book outside of your comfort zone. And for that, I read Disability Visibility, edited by Alice Wong. I'm doing pretty well on these challenges. I've read 3 to 5 books for each of them. So I'm pretty happy with that. And let's move on to my diversity book bingo and see how I'm doing with that. There are 25 prompts for this challenge, and then there are prompts to read from each of the different continents, and also with representation from different diversity aspects. And so if I'm going for blackout without doubling up, I need to read 25 books for this challenge, and that means about 2 books a month, and we're in month 4 now, so I need to have read about 8 books. And I have read 8 books, maybe 9. I think I've read 9 books, but I haven't decided where I'm gonna put the 9th book on the bingo board. We'll get to that. I'm gonna go through these row by row, and so the first prompt that I've completed on the first row is laughter, and for that I'm counting My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinkan Braithwaite, because that book definitely has a sense of humor, and there were moments where I giggled, so I'm counting that. That book doesn't really have any diversity representation, but it is set in Africa, so I get a point on the continent of Africa. The next prompt I've completed is for another reading event, and for that I read Homegoing by Ya Jassy, which I read as a buddy read with Chelsea at Libraries and Lattes. And a buddy read counts as a reading event, so I'm counting Homegoing for that. That book is set in Africa and North America, and so I get points for both of those continents. And there's also representation of a minority. The next prompt I've completed is nonfiction, and for that I'm counting Disability Visibility, edited by Alice Wong. And this is sort of set in North America. The writers are all from North America, I think, but it does have a lot of different representation. So I get points for Indigenous peoples, minority, LGBTQIA+, disability, and neurodivergence, because there are people representing all of those things. So just by reading that book, I've gotten a point on all of my diversity representation. So that's a great pick and a great recommendation if you also need to just cross off some things. The next prompt I've completed on the bingo board is to read a book set on an island. And for that, I read Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. That is set on Antigua, which is an island, and that is in North America, so I get a point for North America, and no other representation going on in that book, but yeah, it's set on an island. I also completed the prompt Future Empowerment by reading ADHD for Smartass Women by Tracy Otsuka. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to keep this book on this prompt because I didn't find it very empowering, but like that's the reason I read it, and I think it can be empowering, and so I don't know, it's gonna be there for now. That is sort of taking place in North America, and it also counts for neurodivergence as it is about ADHD, so I get points for that at least. And so yeah, I'm keeping it there for now, and if I find a better option to put there, I might switch it out later on, but that's where we stand at the moment. For a 2025 release, I read Red Clay by Charles B. Fancher. That is set in North America, and it has representation of a minority. I also completed a comfort read, and that was Ronja Rövardotter by Astrid Lindgren. And that's set in Europe, in Sweden, and it doesn't really have any other kind of representation, but it was definitely comforting. And then for the prompt to read a translated book, I read Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. That is set in South America, so I get points for that. It's set in Brazil, and it also has representation of a minority and also disability. And then I've also read The Chain by Shimen Soleiman, which I thought was a really great memoir about a feminist issue. So I could put this on the prompt memoir or biography, or feminist, or a 5-star read. And I have options for all of those prompts, and so it depends what other books I read this year where I want to put the chain, but I think I'm going to include the chain somewhere. But that is a book that I have read that can count for one of the prompts on the bingo board. I just haven't decided which one. And then I have a list of 25 books that I want to read in 2025, and out of those I have read Forgotten on Sunday, My Sister the Serial Killer, Bunny, and Our Wives Under the Sea. So that's how I'm doing on all of the reading challenges. I hope you enjoyed this little update. My voice is about to give up on me, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. I counted what? For the book, no. Okay, I need to also do the things. Okay.